Welcome to Chapter 3 of Wonder Kid Meets the Evil Lunch Snatcher. The fourth grade classroom at Summerfield School was not much different from the fourth grade classroom at Brian's old school. The desks were arranged the same way, and the big hand-on-the-wall clock jumped from minute to minute with the same sharp clicking sound as the clock on the wall of his old classroom. The two rooms even smelled the same, like chewing gum and tennis shoes and chalk dust and peanut butter and chocolate cake and bananas. As the morning passed and the sack lunches that were stored in the cubbies at the back of the classroom got warmer and riper, Brian became more and more hungry. By the time 12 o'clock rolled around, his stomach was growling so loudly it sounded like a caged tiger. "Whenever you children are finished eating, you can go out and play," said their teacher, Mrs. Busby. Brian felt sure he was going to like Mrs. Busby. She had kind eyes and a voice with a smile in it. And even though it was only his first day at Summerfield, she already knew his name. "Didn't you bring a lunch, Brian?" she asked him. For a moment, Brian considered telling her what had happened to his lunch. Then he remembered Matt Gordon's words, "Any kid who snitches on me is asking for trouble." There was no way he wanted trouble from Matt and his buddies. "I did bring a lunch," he said. "I'm just not hungry." Since he had nothing to eat, he got up and went outside. The playground was crowded with children. He glanced about him, feeling left out and lonely, the way he had often felt back at his old school. At least he didn't see Matt Gordon and his friends. Sixth graders must have a later recess, he thought. Suddenly, he caught sight of his sister sitting on a bench. She was jabbering away at a girl with bright red hair. Brian walked over to where the two girls were sitting. When he reached them, he saw that they were eating potato chips. "Hi," said Sarah. "This is Lisa, Robbie Chandler's sister. She's in third grade, and she's sharing her lunch with me. Lisa, this is my brother Brian." "Sarah told me what had happened this morning," said Lisa. "I know what it's like to be jumped by Matt and his gang. On my birthday, my mother baked cupcakes for all the kids in my class. The minute I came through the gate, Matt grabbed the box away." "Hey, Brian!" Robbie's voice rang out across the playground. Brian turned and saw his new friend across the playground. "You took off so fast I couldn't catch up with you," Robbie said. He thrust a half of a sandwich into Brian's hand. "I hope you like cheese and tomato. That's all my mom packed today." "Gee, thanks," said Brian, who would have happily eaten anything. He wolfed down the sandwich so quickly he didn't even taste it. "We were talking about that awful Matt," said Sarah. "I wish somebody would teach that bully a lesson." "Like a superhero, maybe?" Robbie said, laughing. "It's too bad those powerful guys aren't real." "Nobody has ever proved they aren't real," said Brian. "Oh, come on," exclaimed Sarah. "You know they're made up." "But what if they weren't?" said Brian. "Who would ever know it? Superheroes go around disguised as ordinary people. It's only when they're fighting evil that they put on their masks and costumes and start flying around and jumping over buildings and zapping criminals." "Sometimes they don't even have to zap criminals," Robbie said. "Sometimes the bad guys just get so scared they surrender." Brian said, "I bet Matt would think twice about robbing people if he thought a superhero was out to get them." "He would never believe that," said Sarah. "Most people believe what they read in the paper," said Lisa. She seemed to be thinking hard as she munched her potato chips. "It's possible Matt might believe a newspaper story, especially if there was a picture that went along with it." "Well, how could we get a story like that in the paper?" asked Sarah. "Lisa could do it," said Robbie. "She's a reporter for our school paper. She's always writing stories about interesting people. But the picture, said Sarah. Who would pose for that? I would, Brian said excitedly. I would dress up in that Superman costume I wore on Halloween. Nobody could tell who it was if I wore a mask. I wore a Spider-Man costume last Halloween, said Robbie. We could use the hood from that to cover up your hair. Sarah regarded the two boys doubtfully. Aren't superheroes big? Not when they're young, said Brian. Everybody starts out as a kid. I'd need help writing the story, Lisa told them. I don't know much about how superheroes do things. No problem, Robbie said with a grin. Brian and I are experts. We'll come up with a story that will knock Matt Gordon's socks off. The end of Chapter 3. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for Chapter 4 coming soon. If you like it, remember to subscribe. Bye.